Hi, this is Jeff Kober, and we welcome you to Disney Insights. Bright suns. Throughout this year, we have celebrated Disneyland's 70th anniversary by looking at the 9 lands of the park. And as the celebration continues in Anaheim, we also continue our celebration here on Disney Insights. Today, we look at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. This is perfect because this land especially references the last 3 film series in the larger trilogy. This week, Star Wars The Force Awakens came out 10 years ago into the movie theaters. So much of that film and the 2 others that followed after it tie into the Black Spire Outpost of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. We're going to relive the opening of this themed land at Disneyland, talk about the similarities and differences to its twin at Disney's Hollywood Studios, and then share with you my top 7 Easter egg style references to Star Wars within this land. Join us as we celebrate Star Wars Galaxy's Edge on Disneyland's 70th anniversary. This podcast is produced by myself and Performance Journeys, which offers training, development, and consultant support to organizations big and small and entrepreneurs new and established. With a wide variety of resources and long-time in-the-trench experience, we offer workshops, online learning, coaching, and more to organizations that want to build their teams, raise organizational excellence, improve leadership, and create customer loyalty. Check us out at performancejourneys.com. And please support us by not only subscribing to this podcast, but offering up a rating, review, or referral to others. Be sure to check out DisneyInsights.com, where we offer key points, photos, videos, links, and so much more. And note that our YouTube Disney Insights page also carries our podcasts, plus a lot of other videos, all in the Disney realm. So please subscribe to our Disney Insights YouTube page, as it will be more a part of our social media strategy moving forward. We welcome any positive thoughts and comments as you enjoy all of these different ways of checking out Disney Insights. Well, let's talk about visiting my first time. I feel so fortunate to have been one of the first to have visited this new land when it was first previewed in Anaheim back in 2019. It was memorable, and looking back at it, I'm so grateful I took the time and money to come out to visit. During the first days of opening, guests who were fortunate to get in were only allowed 3 hours to visit. Man, I made the best I could of the experience, which did not include Rise of the Resistance, an attraction that didn't open until nearly the end of the year, after Walt Disney World had a chance to open it first. Here is a list of what I experienced in only 3 hours. I entered the park prior to guests entering, queued up prior at Star Wars Launch Bay at Disneyland, awaited entry with hundreds of others at the Galactic Grill, also known as the Tomorrowland Terrace, entered the land for the first time by way of the Fantasyland entrance. We'll talk more about those entrances later. Took a photo with Chewie, tested blue milk, consumed Katsaka's kettle popcorn and a Coca-Cola in a detonator style cup, purchased a Batuan Spire credit medallion, purchased a Rex droid at Droid Depot, experienced Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run for the first time, tried a Ronto wrap with green milk, stood in standby and got into Oga's Cantina, followed Rey around the Resistance Forest, and by and large took over 400 photos and nearly 100 video segments. I will say that I will forever look back on the experience of being there during this special preview. Of the hundreds of times I've been in the Disneyland park, this was truly one of the most memorable experiences. Allow me to literally share that experience the audio from that video with you. This is about the first days of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge opening up at Disneyland for the first time. You actually had a select reservation you had to make, and it was kind of a lottery system. And if you got in, you were able to go in before the park opened. You could see it was very empty. You headed over to Tomorrowland, and there you lined up at Launch Bay, where you took your ticket to actually get all squared away to go into Galaxy's Edge. You were only given 3 hours to actually be in the land during that day, and this was the first group to go in for that day. You had a little opportunity to go shopping upstairs at Galaxy's Edge before you headed over and gathered at the Galactic Grill over at Disneyland, and then as a group you were walked over from Tomorrowland through Fantasyland, and from there given an opportunity to actually visit Galaxy's Edge. Now, I didn't capture video of actually going into the area. I do have some still photos, but I wanted you to see what it was like to especially go through the unique entrance here from Fantasyland. Hi, this is Jeff Kober. I'm here at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge in the first week of operation. Wanted to share with you the amazing place that this is. So many interesting details, so many things that if you don't know what you're looking for, you're going to miss it. I'm going to turn the camera around and show you some of the great things that you can see while you're here visiting us. We're going to go through the heart of Galaxy's Edge right here. We're going up this ramp and take a look at the surroundings. You'll see some land speeders over there and a Black Spire station, kind of a gas station outpost. Over here is where you were able to create your own droid and also be able to create your own lightsaber. Doc Ondars has a unique collection of merchandise for those interested in getting the best of the best here at Galaxy's Edge. And up ahead we have the Piece de la Resistance, the Millennium Falcon. You see that it is pretty stunning, and everyone is gathered around to take photos of themselves. This may be the most photographed place, even beyond Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella's castle. The entrance to that attraction is there. We're in the heart of Black Spire Outpost, and right over here is Olga's Cantina.
Down here, you should hide because Olga is not like Wookiees. Every blaster shot tells a story here, especially in front of Olga's. So be careful with those Wookiees over there.
Let me go ahead and take you through the highlights of visiting Star Wars Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run for the very first time.
Maybe you should leave alone. In fact, I'm sure you should leave it alone.
Oh, man, that hurts.
What did you do?
Hey, why would someone be shooting baby wrath cars? That can't be legal.
Keep it moving, people. We're trying to do work here. Just keep moving.
Gar on the com. This is Gar. Nothing
This is Malta. Go ahead.
What's with all these people everywhere today?
Honda's hiring new flight crews. No experience necessary.
No experience necessary. Yeah, experience. Why doesn't he put me on a flight crew?
Miss Chandley, I don't think you're flight crew material.
Hey, come on! I literally just saw an 8-year-old walk by.
Trust me, Karen, you don't want this job.
Ship them. Well, I had a bad feeling about that last group, but this is the group I've been waiting for, yes. Come in, come in. I have an opportunity for you all that is bad, dangerous. I was going to say profitable. You think I'm so heartless I would send my friends into danger? You insult my honor, and believe me, I have very little honor to insult.
Together for us, please.
It's kind of a hook and jump, but still fast and shipping down. But you are next. They make more ones before. You have, the rest of you is perfect. The less experience you have, the better. The way this works is, every United Station, you flash a button water pressure. Okay, you guys are up. We're right this way. Hondo's got a few more words for you.
Yes, Chewie will pilot us in remotely. We'll retrieve 2 containers of coaxium. This will greatly help the resistance. You have heard the First Order and made Chewie proud.
Come back over here. Here's docking bay 7. But we're going to go right over here through Ronto's Roasters. And we're going to cut our path right through here. Some dining areas over here. The heart of everything. It's another location. You get blue and green milk if you want it. This offers wrapped pitas. We'll go on up these steps here. So that gives you a taste of what I've experienced those first 3 hours in Galaxy's Edge. At the end, you were invited to go out via the exit beyond Rise of the Resistance. Of course, that attraction was not operating yet. It would be several more months before it opened. I think the most jarring part of my whole experience was exiting and coming to the Hungry Bear restaurant, which was this little corner of Disneyland for so many years, and now suddenly it was a highway practically for people coming to and from. I took the time to grab a drink there and really thought about this whole experience called Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. I remember how absolutely exhausted I was by the time I reached the Hungry Bear restaurant, and really had to take a break at that point. So much was going through my head at that moment, and it would still now be another couple of months before Walt Disney World's park opened up, just prior to a hurricane coming through and all the craziness of that. But and that's a whole nother conversation for another day, because we're really talking about Disneyland. But I did want to talk about the similarities and the differences between the version that is at Disneyland and the version that is at Disney's Hollywood Studios at Walt Disney World. I think it's worthy of some comparison. First of all, I should say that 98% of the experience is identical in the 14 acres. Maybe it's 96, but it's a pretty identical thing. Both of them are 14 acres in length. Both of them cost a boatload of money to put together, over $1 billion, and the joint investment. Although at Disneyland, they had to move in the rivers of America. That was better than replacing and getting rid of the rivers of America, but we've covered that painful argument before. So that is one of the major things. I mean, theirs is in a Magic Kingdom style park as opposed to a studio style park, which is what you see at Walt Disney World. But that said and done, even though they fall in very different places, they are 14 acres apiece, and they are nearly identical from start to finish. Curiously, though, they are both placed in the back of their respective parks, so they share that in common, and they both host two major attractions. We're not going to talk a lot about them today because they are whole conversations in and of themselves: Millennium Falcon, Smuggler's Run, and the legendary Rise of the Resistance. Amazing attractions, soon to get even more amazing as it relates to the Millennium Falcon experience. But they are both pretty identical in terms of those attraction experiences. And then of course, both of them are also the same in that the Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run is going to get an update with the Mandalorian and Grogu going into May of this next year. So both are experiencing those updates, and that's going to be very exciting as that occurs. Now, the differences are as follows. First off, as you can see by this conversation so far, the opening day at Disneyland was first and foremost beyond Walt Disney World's opening. It also was the last. Disneyland opened first, but their Rise of the Resistance came after the studios opened their Rise of the Resistance. There was a bigger opening event at Disneyland that included Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, and George Lucas joining Bob Iger on stage. That contrasted with the Walt Disney World version, where Bob Chapek and some of the park characters got on stage with him at the studios. That opening is probably one of the most awkward park attraction openings I have ever seen. It just feels weird, and so it's so completely different than the Hollywood style opening that occurred at Disneyland. A big difference, and probably the one that's most significant, is that at Disneyland there are not two, but there are three entrances and exits to the Star Wars experience. When you get to the section, first of all, there is a Fantasyland style entrance, which goes, and I say Fantasyland because it actually begins right at the edge near Red Rose Tavern, and where the Casey Jr. ends, you kind of veer off to the right from there, and you go through, really, it feels more like Frontierland as you kind of go down the trail here, and then you enter into the section that kind of leads you right by where the Blue Milk stand is. Then you have the other two exits, which are at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Disneyland utilizes a canyon, rock, and forest kind of entrance. It's more Canyon Rock by Big Thunder as you go through the Frontierland entrance, and then it's more of a forest entrance as you come in on the other side from Rise of the Resistance, where it's coming out from the Bayou Country area now. It was at that point Critter Country, but it's Bayou Country now, and it's all forested, and it goes under the train tracks and then heads into the area where the Resistance is stationed. That's very different from the Walt Disney World, Disney's Hollywood Studios version, which comes off of a major street and uses the Figueroa Street Tunnel kind of entrance you find in Los Angeles. It's very similar to one of the climatic scene in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where they enter into a Figueroa Street Tunnel and then enter into Toontown. Only here you don't enter into Toontown. At the studios, you enter into the area near Rise of the Resistance. That's probably the biggest thing, is that there are three actual entrances at Disneyland as opposed to only two at Disney's Hollywood Studios. The land itself faces southward at Disneyland, and Walt Disney World at the studios, it actually is kind of facing northward. So if you are exiting the Millennium Falcon and you're looking out, or the Millennium Falcon attraction, and you walk out into that plaza area where the Millennium Falcon is, you are now moving north. And so I mention that because the lighting of the sun differs in both of those two locations. And because of that lighting difference, and because of geographical differences in general, the color palette in the land is actually different. At Walt Disney World, back east, they use a warmer, deeper, and kind of more varied set of tones with darker brown spires and potentially more rockwork detail to counteract the intense Florida sun and create kind of more of a lived-in kind of feel. Out west at Disneyland, well, there is kind of a more of a monochrome, or more of a muted set of tones that probably emphasizes the weathering a little bit more. And its overall look is affected by the California sun and by distinct lighting. You know, in the California mornings, you get a heavy amount of fog. And so you kind of play to that difference, which you never get at Walt Disney World. So as you study it, you can look at the same buildings and see a very different color tone, or a slightly different color tone between the east and west. And that happens in all the parks. If you look at Main Street out at Walt Disney World, you get a very different, more vibrant feel than you do when you are in Disneyland, which is much more subtle. With that and the geographic differences, the landscaping is also very different due to the climates in both California and Florida. The foliage in Florida has come to feel a little bit more green and vibrant, while the California location's plant life often appears a little drier, maybe kind of having more of an arid look, a sparse kind of feel to it, which again would be consistent with a remote outpost of Batu. In Rise of the Resistance, I feel like when I go through the queue of Rise of the Resistance that the queue is different, but from what I have studied of it, perhaps it is exactly the same, but it looks different. The caves have a slightly different theme, or actually is more distinct from one cave to another. You see more detail in the caves at Rise of the Resistance than you do, I think, than you do at Disneyland. Both of them have a lot of resistance, weaponry, and that type of thing. And crates and that type of thing, but the look and the heritage and the history of the caves seems a little bit more spelled out at Disneyland. One of the big differences between the Disneyland and the Walt Disney World version is food options. Docking Bay 7 at Disneyland offers a more limited menu, but kind of more interesting selections like Kublai curry, which is a shrimp and chicken dish, as well as fried chicken bao buns. Remember, we do bao buns over at Pandora. They don't have that option kind of in the same way, although they do it over at California Adventure. But there are 4 selections on the menu, not including the vegetarian at Disneyland. There are actually 6 options at the studios. Docking Bay 7, what makes that even more different at Disneyland is that they offer a dining package during their nighttime gatherings, which consists of sort of a bento box thing and a special viewing area to see the nighttime gatherings for about it's a little under $100. With this, their standard dinner at Docking Bay 7 ends much earlier at 7, while the studios their restaurant stays open till about 9. Katsaka's Kettle actually offers more than popcorn and drinks at Disneyland, to include a Life Day cheese branch, which is a croissant-style pastry, and a Koiden cold hot chocolate that is also on the option. there. Ronto Roasters. This is a big difference in that at Disneyland, it is open much later, even until 11 p.m. on certain nights. And it adds a couple of different options there. They have a falampasa cheese skewer. The studios added pork rinds and some plant-based options. But the studios closes theirs at 3 p.m. You can still get a Ronto Roaster sandwich style thing over at Docking Bay 7, but the opportunity to actually go and get it there at that location ends at 3 p.m. So that really kind of makes the place feel a little more vacant in the afternoon. Both parks have different snacks and drink variations at their milk stand. While both offer a blue and green milk, only the studios offers an alcoholic version of both. And at Oga's Cantina at Disneyland, there are 10 alcoholic drinks, 4 snacks, and 9 non-alcoholic drinks. At the studios, there are 11 alcoholic drinks, 7 non-alcoholic drinks, and 4 snacks as well. So a little bit of variation in that. And there is variation of what those are on the menu, particularly in the snack realm. Disneyland versus Disney Hollywood Studios. When it comes to characters and droids, it's pretty much the same throughout. Although Boba Fett and Fennec Shand have actually made occasional appearances over there. Both of them have had the BDX droids come by and visit, though I believe that the BDX droids were only available to be seen during the Star Wars night event that they have, which, by the way, is another major difference. Disneyland has an after dark separated ticket event called Star Wars Night. These are 4 this year, though they had 8 of these events last year. All in all, there's about 20 different nights at Disneyland when you look at the this year's 2026 total coming up. And 4 of them are Star Wars nights. So with that, Disneyland also has 2 shows. One is called Shadows of Memory, a Skywalker saga, and it tells the story of a young potential Jedi who led to the dark side. You probably know this story. But it's done beautifully with projections up along the mountains there in Black Spire Outpost. And there's also a droid that sits on the tower. If you are facing Millennium Falcon, there is a sort of a platform up above on the right-hand side, just past the queue to the Millennium Falcon. And there's a droid on the top of that tower, and it tells the story using projections and a little bit of pyro and music and so forth. But then Disneyland also has Fire of the Rising Moon. And this is fascinating because it matches the fireworks from the Wondrous Journey show, which is being played throughout the rest of the park. So if you're on Main Street in front of the castle, if you're over at Small World, if you're over by Fantasmic, you get to see Wondrous Journeys as a fireworks, and they have projections that go with that. But within Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, you actually see a very different, you see the same fireworks, but it's to a completely different soundtrack and theme. And it really is clever. And if you go to my YouTube page, you can see both Shadows of Memory and Fire of the Rising Moon. Really fascinating. If there's one other thing I should mention that is a difference between between Disneyland and Disney's Hollywood Studios, is that at one point there was a Star Cruiser just outside of Galaxy's Edge at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Of course, it's no longer there, but it has kind of played a role in terms of where story goes in both of the parks. So again, not a big difference. You probably could be put right in the middle of one of these places, either in Disneyland, Disney's Hollywood Studios, and not know, unless you studied the sun at the beginning of the day or the end of the day, you probably wouldn't know exactly which of the parks you were in. That is so identical on so many levels, and certainly when you get inside the attractions, even more so, or inside the restaurants, even more so. But there are some differences. Now, beyond this, there are some really great Easter eggs that harken to Star Wars. The beauty of this land is it offers more layers of thematic detail than the casual Star Wars viewer may know. Yet, because it's not inherently part of a particular film location, people don't often get it immediately. But believe me, there are deep cuts for Star Wars fans who really love this kind of thing. Now, I myself am not a big Star Wars fan. I've seen all the movies, love all the movies, seen the movies repeatedly, been on Star Tours a bazillion times, and been in these lands a bazillion times. But I am a Disney fan, and that's what brings me to this. And yet there are so many references to the Star Wars world than we could ever cover in one podcast. So I want to just cover 7 of my favorite. Maybe come back to the list another day. Know that if you invest the time, you will not be disappointed by what you find there. But also know that because of the decision to make a place unlike anything else moviegoers saw on the big screen or even read in a book, you may have to look harder to find those connecting points. In other words, when you go to Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, you're going into the school castle, Hogwarts, and you know these different rooms, you know the exterior, you know what to look for. It's not that at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. You got to look harder, but there's plenty if you look, and you will find it. So in that spirit, let me talk about some of those differences that I really love. And I want to start off with a fairly familiar with, if you've been a couple of times, you've probably seen this. Inside the marketplace area at Merchant Row, there's a drinking fountain right there, and it's near some of the restrooms that are also there. But right beside or above the drinking fountains, there's a Dianoga beast that will do a cameo appearance from this fountain. And it will surprise the guests who came for a slurp. It's found that if you don't know the beast by name, the Dianoga beast, it was found in the original Star Wars film, A New Hope. It emerged during the trash compactor scene. And if you recall the moment when Han Solo and Leia and Luke are in the trash compactor and they're trying to figure out what's going on, and all of a sudden this eye turns up out of the water and takes Luke underneath the water and so forth. So now you may have to wait around a few minutes for this to recycle, and honestly, there are just days and weeks when this offering has operationally gone 101, so you may not see it, but it is very cool when you do, and you can see a video of it on my YouTube page. Now, speaking of that same scene, where they are in the compactor scene, the compactor room, let me also share another aspect of it. The trash compactor scene that introduces that one-eyed beast also brings us another reminder of our 3 friends, Luke and Leia and Han Solo, when the walls started crushing in on them. You'll remember that Luke is there frantically trying to give R2-D2 a code to stop the trash compactor from squeezing them out. That code, when you look around at the trash receptacles throughout the land, you will see a trash receptacle and you will see the numbers 326, 3827. This is the code that Luke is trying to give R2-D2 to stop the trash compactor. By the way, now that we're talking about R2-D2, his tracks, and even C-3PO's tracks, and a lot of other Beast tracks, can be found all over the Black Spire Outpost. They literally took his original footprint and made a mold and went around as they laid out the cement or the flooring for this entire land. And you find him moving about because of his tracks that are there. So that's the second thing I wanted to highlight. Now, over to Docking Bay 7. This is, if you're not familiar, the primary counter service experience at Galaxy's Edge. When you visit, you will note on top of this food facility is a freighter bringing supplies, in this case food supplies, into port. Remember, it's a spaceport. This location is sandwiched kind of between the Millennium Falcon and the Rise of the Resistance attraction. Well, more particularly the Ronto Roasters area. The restaurants, well, when you are outside of Docking Bay 7, you'll notice that the ship has the number 77 and the number 83 on it. These are references to the first Star Wars trilogy, with 1977 being A New Hope, as we talked about a minute ago, with the trash compactor scene, and 1983 being The Return of the Jedi. Where is representation for The Empire Strikes Back, which was released in 1980? Well, if you want to see that, then you have to go indoors, because as you look up indoors, you see a bold 80 that is labeled on a piece of cargo that is trying to be lowered into this warehouse area that has been turned into a restaurant. This cargo, by the way, is for Chef Strono Cookie Tuggs, who has traveled throughout the galaxy following his longtime gig as Max Kanata's castle at Takadona. I don't know any of those. They say I'm not a Star Wars fan, but that's the backstory. He brings exotic flavors and usual dishes, made and brought in by that transport, which is, I can't even pronounce this, a Sinar Chal Utilipede transport. It serves as part of a mobile kitchen, part restaurant, kind of a traveling diner for diners traveling, and that comes from that. Now, next door is another facility, which is Ronto Roasters, and there we find an interesting droid, 8DJ8. Ronto Roasters is a grill where meats are being roasted thanks to a recycled pod racing machine. You see this pod racing engine not being hoisted up, and the fire from it is burning this very large roast, a Ronto roast. And the meats here are theoretically cooked by a former smelter droid, 8DJ8. You may recall that a similar droid to this existed in The Return of the Jedi. Here, he is more of a smelter droid, but in the Disney Plus series of Boba Fett, he seems to be more like C-3PO, where he is operating more like a protocol droid, even offering translation. But apparently, in a series of barters, this version of the droid has been placed in a very rote, repetitive role. He's no longer being asked to use his critical thinking skills or his ability to translate. And instead, he has been easily dismissed as a figure who can do only repetitive roles. And in this case, what he does all day long, day in, day out, 24/7, 365, is he turns the big spit at Ronto Roasters. But know that there is a history behind that. Now, across the way from Docking Bay 7 and Ronto Roasters, we come to Doc Ondar's Den of Antiquities. And let's just make this clear. There are holocrons, ancient Jedi and Sith artifacts, lightsabers. There's so much to be found. They span all eras and all parts of the galaxy. This is truly an antique store that has the best of the best. And among the nooks and crannies expected at an antique store, one can see Doc Ondar himself at his desk as he checks his inventory, takes incoming calls, and barks at the occasional order at his assistants. He is the gatekeeper of the black market here. If you are from somewhere in the galaxy and have one of the valuable rare items you want to sell, you know to come to Batuu to look for the Black Spire Outpost and find this infamous Ithorian. Doc Ondar alone could be, and this whole store could be, a podcast in and of itself that identifies so many different relics and memorabilia from the Star Wars films. In essence, it's really almost more a museum masquerading as a retail operation. There's even a rumored Ark of the Covenant hidden behind in the upstairs attic in the Disneyland version. Now, for me, I have a pretty good height, but I have not been very good at seeing where this is. But apparently, it's back there. But that's not actually what I wanted to talk about. The item I wanted to mention was actually outside Doc Ondar's. It's a bizarre rock sculpture. He has a larger than life product out there, but this case, it's this bizarre rock sculpture. Supposedly, the remains of his parents were reintroduced into this large black sculpture, which kind of acts as a headstone for them. It's all very strange. And even stranger is that Disney actually has sold relics of this for like $49.99 inside the store. And most people don't even know what this thing represents. It's absolutely bizarre, but that's the craziness of Doc Ondar's, and it's our number 5 item. Going to number 6, what I want to talk about is, well, over at Oga's Cantina. It is the local watering hole in Black Spire Outpost. Oga Gara is your host at this location, an alien owner and probably in charge of which guests, to include smugglers and bounty hunters, are allowed. While that cantina belongs to Oga, know that Oga is often on the road and seldom there at the cantina. But the DJ for this locale is on hand and is spinning music all the time. And it's DJR 3X or DJ Rex. This guy may seem fairly familiar. This is the same Rex 24 droid who was at the helm of the Star Speeder 3000 in the original Star Tours attraction. With the new Star Tours adventure continues, C-3PO kind of took over piloting those ships. That left Rex unemployed, and flying about, he crash-landed on Batuu. He was found nearby by Mubo, who runs Droid Depot. He was rebuilt and given new programming, making him DJ Rex. To settle a debt, Mubo traded him to Oga. Oga put him to work. By the way, stepping away from this tale of Batuu, the original Paul Rubens of Pee Wee Herman fame was the original voice of Rex, and again reprised his role. In fact, it was probably one of the last pieces he did before he passed away. Be assured that his DJ skills are probably no more professional than his piloting skills. But also know that while it's not shown at Disneyland in its version, one of the things unique to Disney Hollywood Studios is that the crash site of where DJ Rex landed is at the entrance on the right as you move from Toy Story Land into Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. It's not far from Droid Depot itself where Mubo finds him. So again, it's all part of the story and all part of the details. All you see are these things going on, but in truth, they all have a story and a heritage behind them. That brings me to my number 7 one. And that takes us back into the Merchant Row area. And here is Toydarian's Toy Story. And actually, there's a lot of course, a Toydarian is what we find who well, if you remember, you go back to the Phantom Menace, Watto was a Toydarian who was a slave owner of Anakin, and his mother, Watto, is a Toydarian. Toydarians are able to fly with the help of their leathery wings because helium fills their stomach, bloating them. Playing on the title of the species, there is a toy story that is part of the retail experience of this village. Through a translucent window, you can see Toydarians floating around in the back of the house office. But the thing I wanted to point attention to are 3 toy Land Rovers and child speeder bikes that are in front of the store. They're just miniature versions. Now, mind you, there's some wonderful Land Rovers and speeder bikes elsewhere at the Black Spire Outpost. But there are 3 of them here, and they are child size. One is red at the top, the one in the middle is green, and the one at the bottom is blue. If you look at the green one in the center of the rack And it doesn't matter if you are Disney's Hollywood Studios or at Disneyland, you will see initials on the green bike in Arabic. Those three initials, when spelled out in English, are L, the letter M, and the letter A. It's not a reference that has meaning here at Disneyland, but it does on the exact same bikes at Disneyland's Hollywood Studios, because those initials, LMA, actually stands for Lights, Motors, Action, which was the stunt show that was located in this place prior to the building of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Walt Disney World. I'm telling you, I have just barely touched the surface of all the crazy and amazing things that you really can find when you visit Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland, or for that matter, at Disney's Hollywood Studios. But I wanted to celebrate and give notice to it. It has changed the landscape of Disneyland in a way that that has never really been seen before. And so I think it's important that you actually see this land in the context of the entire Disneyland park experience. Well, we are going to still have 2 more lands to cover in the Disneyland park itself. I am going next month, I'm going to cover Toontown, and then the greatest land of all of them, Fantasyland, we will cover. And then probably we may just, with the rest of the 70th anniversary, move over to Disney California and check out some of the lands there. Thinking about that, more to come. But in the meanwhile, if hearing all these things about going to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge again, whether it's at Disneyland or Walt Disney World, you're thinking, time to go visit Disney. Hey, go talk to David and Leah with Zenola Travel, because they know Disney in ways few do, and they can make your next trip on land or sea an exciting one, or at least a whole lot less stressful. So be sure to contact them as you explore your vacation, whether it's a Disney theme park vacation, a cruise, or adventure by Disney. There is no charge to utilize their services, but it will save you enormous time getting all the details right. And with their insight, you can be assured you're going to experience the best trip possible. So, hey, contact them today. Their information is available in our show notes and at DisneyInsights.com. Hey, only a few more days until Christmas and the rest of our holidays. Hanukkah, I think, has already started. There is a great way to celebrate, and that is through our books. Give the gift of a great Disney book, whether it's A Century of Powerful Disney Insights, 100, Volume 1, The Walt and Roy Disney Years, or The Wonderful World of Customer Service at Disney, or Disney Leadership in You. Order the books today. Those links are in our show notes. By the way, these are great gifts to give to your employees and fellow co-workers at this time of year. So go to that site. You know someone who loves Disney, works with you? Go order this book today, or one of these 3 books today. Now, to find excellence in your organization, you can grab one of our books, but you can also come visit with me. And if you need a keynote speaker, if you need consulting, if you need support, I'm happy to help provide that to you through my organization, Performance Journeys, which celebrates more than 20 years as a training and development group bringing best in business ideas through books, keynotes, workshops, seminars, online tools, all of that takes your organization to the next level. So just reach out. My number's out there. Call me. Let's talk. Hey, thanks for joining us for this podcast. Know that as in the title of Performance Journeys, it's as much about the journey as it is about performance. So find the second star to the right and keep going straight on till you reach it. Follow the compass of your heart and know that with a smile and a song, a little faith, effort, and pixie dust, your dreams can come true. After all, if we can dream it, we can do it. Until next time, bright suns. We'll see you real soon.